All right, I've got some good news and some bad news. First, those got milk commercials with all of our childhood heroes were pure propaganda. That being said, strong bones do, in fact, make a big longevity difference. And the reasons might surprise you. You can wipe off the milk mustache now. Yeah. Yo, what is up? Welcome back to another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftandbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and longevity and do it in an odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic way. Today, we are taking a very structural approach in talking about the structural components that allow us humans to, well, human. And do this human-ing the way it should be done. Living it up without any limitations to the very end. We are talking about the often taken for granted importance of keeping our bones strong, dense, and healthy, and why this endeavor is not only essential for aging gracefully, but a potential secret in staving off the disease and dysfunction which has become oh so common in our modern world. So we'll be diving into the cellular details of what makes bones bone, the factors and dysfunction which lead to their breakdown, and most importantly, ways to keep your structural self strong for the long run. But before we geek out, we must first start with the all-important why. And that's simple, because milk mustaches just make you look so much cooler. Okay, but seriously, other than the obvious reasons of being structurally stable and preventing injuries throughout life, our bones happen to become major longevity liabilities as we age. And here's why. One of the biggest risks of death we modern humans face as we accumulate chronological years on this beautiful floating rock is becoming physically weak and feeble, immobile, not being able to do once simple tasks like walking up the stairs without a risk of injury. And this fragility drastically increases the odds, likelihood, and probability of the beginning of the end, stealing away years of truly living, as complications from falls, such as a broken hip, often lead to a sharp and sad decline across the elderly population, drastically reducing the health span or healthy years of life for an individual. Now, that was the obvious part. The non-obvious part of a deteriorating structural self is its sneaky association with other conditions such as neurodegeneration, or the final stage of cognitive decline. As a recent study of over 3,000 elderly participants just displayed that the individuals with the lowest bone density were 42% more likely to develop dementia than their counterparts with the highest bone density. Not causal, but a scary association indeed. An indication that these two outcomes may be stemming from the same dysfunction. What dysfunction, you ask? To answer that, we first need to understand how bone works under these cellular covers. And it all begins with these hard-headed cells called osteoblasts. Yeah, you get it? Bone. Moving on. These cells are responsible for the formation of new bone tissue, being critical mediators of bone mineralization, or the deposition of minerals such as calcium and phosphate into the matrix of collagen fibers, ultimately forming osteocytes, or hardened, mature bone tissue. Now, it's important to know that our bones are constantly undergoing remodeling, or the breakdown and rebuilding of bone tissue. This is a sign of a healthy skeletal self, allowing bone to be repaired and strengthened. And I bet you'd never guess what these cells responsible for bone breakdown and reabsorption are called. Osteoclasts. Confusingly easy, right? As you could imagine, this yin and yang of growth and breakdown is tightly regulated, because too much of either could wreak havoc on our biological business. In fact, we see firsthand the very havoc that it could wreak on us intelligent walking apes as we age, due to natural and self-imposed shifts in hormones, vitamins, and nutrients throughout life, notable ones including parathyroid hormone, estrogen, and vitamin D. This balance becomes disturbed, leading to the increased deterioration of bone density and mineralization compared to the rate of bone formation. This has become so common, affecting nearly 2 million people worldwide, it has a clinical diagnosis, one you've probably heard more than a few times: osteoporosis. And truth be told, although there are a number of natural bodily shifts which alter this delicate bone balance, such as the significant decrease in estrogen for women after menopause, there is quite a bit of evidence suggesting that our modern day lifestyle norms are not helping the cause. You know, the energy-dense, nutrient-scarce, ultra-processed eating, sedentary behavior, chronic sleep deprivation, severe nature deficit, and all the extracurriculars such as drinking, smoking, vaping, and unwarranted drug use are stacking the odds ever more against us. And get this, there's a good chance that a single common cellular denominator may be at the root of this lifestyle-induced dysfunction. A denominator which sits at the center of all things complex life, and is the reason we humans, yeah, including you, can even be chillin' on the tube of Youb right now. We're talking the energy-producing organelles roaming around each and every one of our cells, converting the food and oxygen that we consume into the energy we use to sustain life. The cellular machinery which tend to be drastically impacted by the environment that we place them in, making them the missing link in determining the effects of modern lifestyle on us. If you haven't already skipped ahead by now, we're talking about mitochondria, a cellular topic so important to health and longevity that we have a laundry list of videos on them, all of which will be linked below. Now, bringing this back to bones, wouldn't you know it, the function of our mitochondria seem to be associated with the function of osteoblasts and osteoclasts. Quite interesting, right? But how so? To explain this, let me prime you with a little crash course on mitochondria dysfunction. This is essentially where those critical organelles become weak, damaged, leaky, and stop functioning optimally. And when this happens, there are two major health impacting outcomes. First, a decrease in energy or ATP production, impacting our ability to do things, cellular things, and thus life things. And second, the increase in the leak of unstable, potentially damaging compounds called reactive oxygen species. And the dysfunction leading to these outcomes can be driven by a variety of reasons, many of which being the lifestyle factors we just discussed. Okay, back to bone. Why does this matter? Well, because as a result of this dysfunction, bone cells may not have enough energy to maintain bone tissue, leading to a decrease in bone density and an increased risk of osteoporosis. But let's dive deeper. How exactly does this happen? Well, one of the ways is thought to be from the aforementioned reactive oxygen species, as they have been shown to activate osteoclasts. Remember them? The cells which break down bone tissue? Yeah. Disturbing the delicate balance between osteoblasts and osteoclasts, aka growth and breakdown, in the wrong direction. And several studies have reinforced this association. A 2018 paper published in the journal Bone found that mice with mitochondria dysfunction had reduced bone density and were more susceptible to fractures compared to the controls. Another 2020 study published in the journal Calcified Tissue, pretty awesome journal names, by the way, found that older adults with lower mitochondria function had lower bone density and a higher risk of osteoporosis compared to those with high mitochondria function. Would you look at that? Mitochondria flexing their longevity muscles once again. Now, there is some good news. Studies also suggest that improving mitochondria function through various interventions such as exercise and dietary changes may boost bone density, as a 2017 paper published in the journal Bone and Mineral Research found that exercise training increased mitochondria function in bone cells and improved bone density in rodents, with research suggesting that this is likely the case in humans as well. But as we know, this most certainly does not just happen. We have to intentionally take back control. Let's explore some ways we can do just that. We find ourselves again in that scary yet empowering spot. The spot of directing our own destiny. Knowing that aging or spending more biological time on this beautiful floating rock is the most correlated risk factor to our demise. But as we've talked about so many times throughout the hundreds of videos on this channel, you, my friend, are in much more control than you think. Being able to modulate the biological mechanisms of aging through lifestyle, aka your habits, rituals, and routines, not only impacting your odds, likelihood, and probability of staying healthy and strong for the long run, but feeling effing awesome in the here and now. That's the beauty in it. Same habits do both. And when you focus on habits to improve your mitochondria health and efficiency, literally everything else improves as a byproduct, because your mitochondria are the life within each and every one of your cells. So when it comes down to keeping your skeletal and structural self strong, here are some things to noodle on. First, the very best thing you can probably do is stress your bones out. Yeah, I know, a little counterintuitive. Let me explain. Bone is the structure in which muscle tissue, or that stuff which actually facilitates our ability to move, connects to. Makes sense when you think about it, right? Here's the cool part. This muscle binding creates an external pulling force on our bone. And the more this pulling happens, the more our bone needs to adapt. How does it adapt, you ask? By stimulating more osteoblast activity and creating stronger bone. So every time you use your muscle, especially in an intentional, methodical way, you make your bone stronger. Maintaining muscle mass, another thing that naturally declines as we age, pretty damn important. So important, we have a full breakdown on it here. Just another reason movement is medicine. Also, to maintain proper muscle mass, we must not forget about consuming adequate amounts of protein, aiming for 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight a day. Next, staying on the dietary side, I want to bring forth the importance of real whole food, especially as it pertains to our bones. Not only will this type of eating drastically reduce the likelihood of mitochondria dysfunction compared to an ultra-processed Western diet, but it will also provide the key nutrients, vitamins, and minerals that trigger the synthesis of bone growth and repair. The main ones being vitamin D, K2, calcium, and magnesium, all playing synergistically with each other. Vitamin D regulates bone remodeling, promotes its growth, and reduces inflammation, all while helping the body absorb calcium. And if you're asking, why the hell is calcium important? I'll inform you that it is a vital nutrient, possibly the most important in the remodeling and growth of bone, with deficiencies being associated with a weakened skeletal self. Magnesium is another nutrient which helps with the absorption and utilization of calcium in the body, playing a key role in not only bone tissue formation, but the regulation of hormones which trigger bone-forming osteoblasts. Finally, vitamin K2 helps by activating proteins involved in bone metabolism, including osteocalcin, which is necessary for the deposition of calcium into bone tissue. This is super important because it helps reduce the risk of calcium going places it shouldn't, like our arteries, and increasing our risk for atherogenic cardiovascular disease. Yeah, don't want that. Moral of the story is nourish up on real whole food, of course. Next, we gotta talk about your Z's. And it's actually a small miracle that we've made it this far in the video without it coming up, as sleep quality, or chronic lack thereof, is associated with bone health through a number of different mechanisms, such as regulating hormones, modulating inflammation, and aligning our circadian rhythms, or that internal body clock, which is so important. So your bones are just another reason to keep high quality Z's on your daily to-do list. Listen, As the old saying goes, we are a continuous work in progress, and this happens to be true at our most basic biological levels, specifically with the structural components we call bones. So start giving your internal construction crew the material to do their job, and do it well, keeping you strong, healthy, and operating efficiently to the very end. And who knows? In doing so, you may find yourself in front of a camera with a milk mustache, inspiring people all around the world to stay strong and live long. Where you can then wipe off the mustache and tell them the truth about keeping their bones strong. Okay, fine. You could keep the mustache on. I know. It's pretty cool. As long as you own it. And tell them to do so too.